Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Adam again, and welcome to my very first episode of Dunking with Subjects. And as I promised in my introductory video, that I'll be bringing tea, which I've got, and biscuits. Although I've got a little bit of problem on that because apparently it's not such a good thing to have product placement, so I've had to come to some kind of solution. So my first biscuits are Hairy Land biscuits, or cookies to be precise. So, my first subject I'm going to be talking about for this video is the biggest of the week, which is of course Gamescom, which is happening in Cologne in Germany tomorrow. And as you know, we've got the big next generation consoles coming this year, and me being a huge PlayStation gamer, this is a big thing. Now, as we all know, from pretty much this year, things have been predominantly going PlayStation, Sony's way. And we all know that a shitstorm's been happening with Microsoft and Xbox over the last 6 months or so. And Microsoft have basically had to backtrack on pretty much everything that they've said, to the point where the Xbox One's not even the console that was first announced. So, what do I expect or think will happen at the two conferences that both Microsoft and Sony are going to be having? Well, Microsoft's conference, which is, I believe, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning our time. The biggest things that I'll be expecting will be the release dates for the consoles, because at this point now, both companies will have nailed down what games are going to be released that day, and how many units they're going to be able to ship. So release dates surely going to have to be nailed down. And plus, from a customer's point of view, there are so many people who'll be just be hovering over pre-order buttons now and want to get their finances in check, just to want to see, just decide where they're going to be plonking their money for the end of the year. So it's high time now the release dates are finally nailed, and Microsoft have been adamant that it's coming November, although they've had to reel back on some continental European countries, including, I think, the whole of Scandinavia, I think. So makes you wonder about. I did hear some stories that Microsoft had some yield problems building the console, so maybe that's had a say in the matter. But I'm not that technically in the know about these kind of things, but that may have had something to do with the kind of problems they've been having. But so they've obviously prioritised where countries they're going to be selling to. As for Sony, they're being a lot more vague. They've been constantly saying holiday 2013. That could mean anything these days. It could mean mid-December, it could mean early December, late November, early November. But I think if Sony is smart, they'll want to release in November. They can't afford to let Microsoft go out first and have a run at the market for too long. Obviously, Sony will know just how much their fingers got burnt by what happened last time when they gave Microsoft a whole year head start, and Microsoft had a year to build up an install base and software built up. And Sony had to play catch up ever since, which they finally have now done. But it's a lot at stake for these companies now that Sony can't afford to let them have too much of a head start. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if Sony come out and say something like, I don't know, 15th, 20th November. Although I think the smart money would be on the Microsoft will want to release Xbox One the same day as Call of Duty Ghosts, which I think is about mid-November point, I think. So I'm just waiting to see if we'll get something like where both consoles will announce the same day. Is that possible? Is that remotely possible that both companies will release their consoles the same day? That'd be mad. But it's going to be fascinating to find out. Other things that I'm expecting from Gamescom is new announcements, especially from PlayStation side, 'cause like I've said before, I'm predominantly a PlayStation gamer, and while I'm not going to say everything Microsoft do is bad and everything Sony do is good, I'm not that type of fanboy type of gamer, but obviously the most things I'm going to be covering will be PlayStation based. But one of the most interesting things I found at E3 was that Sony's Worldwide Studios president Shuhei Yoshida said that Sony have 30 exclusives currently in development for their PlayStation 4, which are currently in development, and 20 are going to be released within the first year. And that blew my mind, really, thinking Sony own about 12, 13 studios, and yet they've got about 30 exclusives on the go. Of course, not all of them be AAA blockbuster titles, and you don't want them to be, because the costs would be ridiculous, and sometimes you need these little smaller games. I mean, look how brilliant games like Tokyo Jungle and that is, or Journey, or Flower, you know. So it leaves you thinking, considering how not many titles were announced at E3. I think only The Order 1886 was the really big one of a Sony exclusive that was announced. It does leave you thinking, well, what the others could be. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think Sony took a gamble with E3, because I think they knew that if they said about the price it's going to be cheaper than the Xbox One, it's going to support used games, they will win E3 on that alone, even without needing to announce some of their bigger titles. And they were right. That's all people talked about after E3. Sony blew away the competition with that conference. Despite the fact it was an okay conference, but just those two announcements alone just blew Microsoft out of the water. And look what's happened since. Microsoft had to backtrack on pretty much everything, and it's not because of fan baiting. It is because at the end of the day, Microsoft got back to Richmond and saw Richmond or Redmond, whatever it is. They got back, saw the bottom line of the pre-order numbers, and they shat themselves. They shat themselves, because I think there were numbers of like 6-1 in favour of the PlayStation 4. They knew they had to do something, otherwise their console was dead in the water, was pretty much dead on arrival. So, and we all know about the things they've had to backtrack on, and there could be other things coming. I wouldn't be totally surprised if Xbox announced a Kinect-less version of the console to make it on par or cheaper than the PS4, because they're that desperate now, I think, just to get some kind of foothold. And to be honest, I lose a bit of respect for them for that, because at least then, if I didn't agree, 100% did not agree with the DRM thing, because I just do not feel comfortable having to give up my rights of what I think I should be allowed to pay for a game, right? And clearly I wasn't the only one thinking that. You saw the reaction at E3, Sony's conference, when they announced they'll support used games. The place erupted like you would not believe. No, there were veteran gaming journalists who've never seen anything like that, ever. So it showed you how much of a big deal it was. So, but as much as I didn't agree with that, if Microsoft had turned and say, okay, we're still sticking with our always online policy, you still have to have the Kinect, right? And some of these other things that they were doing, like with the cloud and things like that, if they were sticking full on with that to say, this is what we're about, I would have said, at least then they showed they've got balls, that they're sticking with this image of what they think the next generation should be, then there they are. But they're not. They've changed so much of the fundamentals of their console to just be like the PlayStation 4. And this is why I'll argue with people as to why would you really want... I mean, the people who buy Xbox One, I have nothing against them whatsoever, right? It could be just because they play Call of Duty on it and they have their friends on it. That is perfectly fine. That's what they want. I'm going to tell people what to do. But I would suggest to them, right, would you really want a console that has been so dictated by its closest rival? Because it has been. Let's face it. And we know Sony are going to have the bigger, more variety lineup of exclusives just because they haven't announced them yet. So what do I think could be announced, or what we don't know yet? Well, for instance, we don't know what Media Molecule are doing yet. They seem to hint at something when the PS4 was announced, which was kind of like this which is kind of like this sculpture type of game. So, sorry about that, the camera was playing up bloody things. Yeah, so as I was saying, Major Molecule, we don't know what they're doing yet, but we know it's probably, in all likelihood, not a Little Big Planet. So, but I'm really interested in what they do because they're wonderfully talented and equally wonderfully creative, and I think they could really do something which I think could blow people's minds. Say, you know what, that is really interesting. That is a really good idea of a next generation type of game. Right, so I have a funny feeling we may finally get solid details on that. I also expect to see proper gameplay footage of The Order 1886. Ready Dawn's first foray into proper big console games after making two really good God of War PlayStation portable titles. Who else is there? It's funny how your mind goes blank when you chat on camera. Oh yeah, Sony Santa Monica. Sony Santa Monica obviously helping Ready Dawn with The Order 1886, but they're such a huge studio. I'd rather call them Sony's octopus of a studio because they have tentacles in so many other little projects, as well as having the main studio that's been doing God of War for all this time. And there's been I won't say announcements, but the television writer Michael Angela, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but this is a man who received an Emmy award, or received an Emmy nomination for an episode he wrote on Battlestar Galactica, and he announced that for the last 2 years or so he's been working with Sony Santa Monica on making a PlayStation 4 title, which he said won't be God of War. Now that excites me, because you think, well, Battlestar Galactica, could it be some kind of sci-fi type game? I mean, if it is, and knowing how brilliant looking Sony Santa Monica have made their games in the past, can you imagine if they do some kind of sci-fi game that's about on par with Mass Effect in terms of ambition and that? Holy crap. You know, but even if it isn't, I'm huge anticipating that, because hugely prolific studio, and it'll be great to see them branch out to a new IP, because with the way God of War 3 ended, where pretty much everyone got killed, it's spoilers, which not exactly etiquette to say spoilers after the spoiler, but I find it hard to think where they could possibly go with God of War after that. So going into a new IP, I think would be a great way to go. Quantic Dream, which I know is not a Sony-owned studio, they're about to release the Ellen Page lead-in Beyond Two Souls in October, I believe. I think October, November, something like that. But they've had like public domains registered for a game called Singularity, which there's already been a game called that, so we'll obviously have a name change eventually. But that seems to be a kind of sci-fi based game, so whether if they'll mention something like that, probably not, because I think they'll want to get Beyond Two Souls out first, and then we'll move into that. But no, I'm a fan of Quantic Dream. Some people like to look down the nose at them just because there's a lot of QTE events and that, but because they do something that's so different. When you look at Heavy Rain, which, by the way, just before I recorded this, they announced that it sold 3 million copies, which is really good going for a PlayStation exclusive. That's such a niche title, such an unusual type of game. But I described it as a flawed masterpiece, because it has so many wonderful. It does so many wonderful things, but it does suffer from some big gaping plot holes and that. But you got to commend games like this for trying something different. If nothing else, even if you just play it once, fair enough. So who else? Well, there's Sony Bend, who just made Uncharted Golden Abyss for the Vita, which how they managed to condense a full-blown Uncharted game into a handheld is beyond me. But are they doing another Vita title where they're going back to Siphon Filter? Are they doing another Uncharted? Or are they doing, moving up to PlayStation 4 with someone else, that, we don't know what they're doing yet. And then, of course, there's the biggest one. What are Naughty Dog's second team doing? Now, of course, as a lot of you may be aware, or some of you may not be aware, that when Naughty Dog released Uncharted 3, and then The Last of Us was announced, it surprised so many people that Naughty Dog were making it because Naughty Dog, throughout their career, have been just a one-game team, or the whole team just makes one game. And now, all of a sudden, they expanded and have now become two teams. And one team went off to make Uncharted 3, and the other half went off to do The Last of Us. And now that The Last of Us has come and blown people away and had tremendous sales, it leaves you wondering, what is that second Naughty Dog team be making? The smart money is on Uncharted 4, and I really want it to be Uncharted 4 because I think it's important from a commercial point of view for Sony to come out and say, here's one of our biggest flagship IPs, first year on PlayStation 4, Uncharted 4, PlayStation 4, right? Get that out of the way, get Nathan Drake onto the PlayStation 4, and then maybe let that team go off and do something new, right? Go off and do something new, then maybe we can look forward to The Last of Us 2 or something. Then maybe the end of the generation, maybe they'll either hand off Uncharted to another developer, or Naughty Dog finish the next generation with another Uncharted again or something like that. So, but do I think it'll be announced at Gamescom? Considering that they announced The Last of Us at the Spike Video Game Awards, which was in about November, December, I won't be too surprised if they do the same again. Because I get the feeling I think Sony will hold something major back around close to the launch of the console, just to sort of say, right, our new console's coming out, look what's coming next year for it. Just to build up that bit more excitement on the day, So yeah, I think we'll get quite a few exclusive announcements, but maybe not as many as you think. I mean, I said there's about 20 exclusives coming within the first year from Sony's in-house studios. I mean, how many do we know so far that we know existed? We know there's Drive Club, Killzone Shadowfall, Infamous Second Son, Knack, PlanetSide 2, DC Universe Online. There's that Hulk Hogan, I think, PlayStation Network title, Doki Doki Universe, and I'm sure I maybe missed one or two out there somewhere, so leave a comment if you remember one. So it leaves you thinking, well, what are the other 12 going to be? Like I say, we don't know what Media Molecule we're doing. We don't know what Sony Bend are doing. We don't know what Naughty Dog are doing. We don't know what Quantic Dream are doing. Who's to say that Sony have not done the same with Naughty Dog, what are now doing to studios like Sucker Punch with Infamous Second Son? If they made them into a second team as well, and they're making something as well, who knows? That's a bit of speculation on my part, but the possibilities are out there at the moment because you just never know. I mean, you think, how can they get so many of those exclusives out? From just about 12, 13 studios. So it's intriguing, I have to say, very intriguing to say the least. Right, so that's my predictions or what would happen this year. So what did you think about some of the things I said? Please leave a comment. Do you agree, disagree? All comments are welcome. And if you like what you see, press subscribe or like, share. Goodness knows what you have to do these days. But if you do any of those things, then, cheers. Thanks very much.